Okay, welcome everyone. Today we are going to have another interesting talk. Cem Kılıçarslan hocamız. He will talk about, let me just open the title. The title is Sequel as Remake and Remake as Sequel. Deneville with recreations of Blade Runner and Dune. So he is going to discuss how these movies are created on the screen. And I'm sure he will give us another beneficial insights about the two movies. Cem Hocam, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This is actually a repetition in theory. I presented this at ASAT 2024 conference. The subject was making something again. And I chose the subject of dealing with a remake. Actually, I'm not an adaptation person. I'm totally alien to the subject. I mean, it's a field of expertise or interest, adaptation studies, which I haven't gotten into because I don't know anything about it. I don't want to because I find it very problematic. But that was my first foray into the subject of adaptation studies, and I decided to have my own view of it. So I prepared this, and that's an interesting discovery for me on my part. By the way, I'm not going to read a paper. I'll just refer to some parts of this paper. This is not going to be a paper presentation. It's going to be a quick introduction of ideas, what I try to do, what I come across, what I found, my idea, and then open the floor for any kind of discussion, contribution. So the main subject was doing something again, and let me, by the way, Hema, move to my presentation.
Yes.
Yes, this is my vain attempt at trying to understand this field of, what is a remake, what is adaptation, or how it works. Actually, it's generally starts with an original work, not mostly it's a novel, and we talk about the first work, which is adapted from it, which is called adaptation, or sometimes referred to as more properly as primary work. After which, if you make a kind of, following story, it's a sequel, then you can go sequel 2, sequel 3. Then you can just go back and sometimes make a prequel. As you see, it's at the top, right next to original. Sometimes you go back and just recreate earlier stories that tell you the background of the primary. So you have prequels. And here I'm going to talk about the remake and sequel. What's a remake? Remake is actually, as you see in the diagram, obviously, it's a remade version of the primary, whereas a sequel is a follow-up. Let's trying to understand this. Can you just move to the next slide, please? Yeah, these are I think, in my attempt to understand how these things work, these are the concepts that I found and tried to provide some definitions into. And we can just move on to the next one again. My argument here, you can just move to the next one, please. And the next one. So this is quickly, when I started watching Blade Runner, the Blade Runner 2049, the most recent one, I realized something, this is made by Denis Villeneuve, and it was, okay, let me just briefly tell you how Blade Runner came to be what it is. Originally, there is a novel called The Blade Runner, published in 1974 by a man called Alan E. Nourse, not a very famous science fiction author. He wrote a novel, and it's called Blade Runner, and Ridley Scott, the director of the first film, he fell in love with the title. He wanted to make a movie out of it, but he got the name rights. So that means he wanted to make a film. He really wanted to make a film with the name Blade Runner. In this novel, actually, the subject has nothing to do with the film. It's a dystopian future. There are no medical supplies, and there are people who are trying to run around the city, collect medical supplies, and bring to hospitals and for the operation they go through. It's just like, maybe you're familiar with Escape from New York, that style of story. But after Ridley Scott got the name rights, they totally lost the connection with the original novel. And actually, the film Blade Runner 1982 was based on another work, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, published in 1968 by Philip K. Dick. So this is, okay, the name comes from Alan E. Nourse's novel, and the subject comes from Philip K. Dick's work. But Of course, there's a great deal of originality in the original Blade Runner 1982. For those people, Blade Runner was never successful as a at the box office. I mean, it didn't make a lot of money. It was a flop. Not many people liked it, but its success somehow grew over time. Academia loves it. Intellectuals loved it. It was rich in many aspects, with many subjects to talk about, with all these cyborgs and interesting philosophical discussions, but it lacked certain kind of action. It was kind of depressing. It was kind of dark, film noir-esque, and it did not make a lot of money. So in 2019, when Denis Villeneuve was offered to make a sequel, which means a follow-up story, that's very interesting because Denis Villeneuve himself, after accepting that, well, on the one hand, it's a very, very good chance for a director to be offered, hey, can you make Blade Runner 2049? He accepted and he deeply regretted. So the reason why is probably the fact that he suddenly found himself under too much. The original Blade Runner is so original that accepting to make a sequel would be just too much for him. Even Villeneuve was overwhelmed by the task, and he asks himself. I have some information on my Chrome tab, but I can't share it with you, where Denis Villeneuve himself says why I accepted that. Because, okay, the reason is, okay, this is a sequel. Can you just move to the next one, please? When I started watching this, I see that the film 2049 has too much. I mean, has too many details. Has too much similar. I mean, how should I say? It looked exactly like the original. Instead of a sequel, instead of an original work, which is a kind of a follow-up, somehow Denis Villeneuve seemed to have chosen to make a replica, to even use the same shots, exactly sometimes frame by frame, maybe because he lacked the originality. Maybe he found himself really overwhelmed by the beauty of the original, so he couldn't create a new version of it. Instead, he decided to, as we say in English, pay homage to the original director, and he in some cases gave direct references to the original work, just like in the frame at the top is from original film. They are very early into the film, so that means he's trying to make the audience understand that this is the Blade Runner. Next one, please. Similar, the same character. When you go on watching the film, you feel like you're watching the original film. I mean, despite the fact that it takes place in some 50 years later, something like half a century, the look is the same. The original protagonist, the facial features, his experience, the way he's presented, the way he flies around in the car, his sentiment, his mood is almost exactly the same. So it feels like instead of making a sequel and trying to find new things, Villeneuve somehow is copying the original more than asking for originality. Next one, please. To such an extent that there are certain kind of frames and scenes in which were not necessary. Okay, the first one, the other one was a protagonist. This is a character, which are different characters, but he actually tried to find somebody who looks exactly or very similar to the original one. Somehow he was, Ridley Scott. I can't beat this man. I can just kneel in front of him. I can repeat his imagery. So that kind of things, there are many others. This is just a fast forward presentation. There are many individual frames in which you can recognize that there are direct references to the original film. Next one, please. To such an extent that the finale, the end of the films, are almost the same. In the first one, the cyborg, the replicant, dies reciting something. In the other one, again, the one that dies in the rain, reciting something very interesting, a very poetic end. The other one, he dies silently, alone, learning that he himself is a kind of also cyborg. So things are the same. Actually, if you know first one, the second one doesn't surprise you. So that, okay, if this is a sequel, how come it really looks more like a remake? That was my question. No, this is not a sequel. This is somebody who's trying to recreate the original, adding some details to, as if this is a different story, but that's very weak. So this is more a remake than a sequel. Next one, please. Moving to the Dune. Dune is based on an original novel published in 1965 by Frank Herbert. It's a very strong novel. It's a very also long, very detailed work, to such an extent that many people consider this unfilmable because there are a lot of details and nobody knows how to put this into visual form. But somebody tried. Firstly, there is a Dune version in 1984, directed by David Lynch, the iconic director. But this is a very problematic film to such an extent that David Lynch himself did not want to be associated with it, and he chose a different name. He rejected it, and it's a long film, 2 hours and 17 minutes. And actually, there is an extended version with extra material, 2 hours, 57 minutes, almost 3 hours. But actually, there were 14 hours of footage. This is technically not a nice film. It's a kind of badly cut. There are repeated scenes. Effects are, cheap looking. But the point is, some of this footage is still missing. Some Italian guy bought the film, took it to Italy, and nobody knows where the extra footage is. If somebody somehow finds it, we may be up to very interesting material. But anyway, Dune is heavily criticized. Even the director himself did not like it. But okay, so the next one, the bottom line is, again, Denis Villeneuve. No, please go back to the proofs. The one at the bottom line is, you see, Dune Part 1 and Part 2. One is 2021. The other one is released in 2024. Denis Villeneuve this time took this job, and he did not complain. Again, these are long films, a total of 5 hours, 15 minutes there, and he's very happy. There's a huge success. But what he says is that, okay, you're making a film. Is this an adaptation from the original or a remake of David Lynch's? This is the question. So maybe we can move to the next one, please. So this is what Denis Villeneuve say about David Lynch's Dune. He says, I watched it at the age of 13. It was okay. David Lynch is a great man. He has an original look, but I think something was missing. It did not quite give me he's very polite. He's paying his respects to David Lynch, but somehow it has to be done differently. This film is not quite like my Dune. We can move to the next one. And then when he is given the task, this is David Lynch's version. It starts with a 7-minute long prologue made up of color illustrations, some drawings. David Lynch's film has a cartoonish look. By the way, the singer Sting also acts in it, if you're familiar. Sting is one of the bad guys. But it has this very interesting, drawing-like, artistic, a certain kind of look, which is very unique. Colors, the way it is presented, and its version of reality and realism is very original. Well, next one, please. So if these are all from David Lynch's. So there's a lot of effort put into the film to create these beautiful royal interiors with all the gold and bluish tints and also lavish decoration and the choice of colors. As you see, it's actually big production. Next one, please. And the scenes, the frames where you take some aliens, some strange figures, they're also presented in such a way as to give you that kind of cartoonish look. Next one, please. Okay, so even look at the hair colors, look at the choice of colors, and look at the people's hair, etc. They are kind of not, I'm not going to say ultra realistic, they are some sort of hyper realistic. The way things are depicted is kind of funny at the same time. It's a different reality. It is on the edge of making you laugh, but at the same time like it. It's simple, but likable. It's a very interesting quality. You either love this or you totally hate it. You love this because it has an original look. You hate it because you don't like that look. That's the kind of but that's David Lynch. That's how chose it to be. You can move to the next one, please. This is Villeneuve's. Villeneuve chose a totally different look while making the film. Okay, here things that get really interesting, but let me just talk about it. Let me just firstly show you the frames. As you see, these kind of frames don't look very different from totally washed out Star Wars, Arrival, Game of Thrones, the same era films, they all shared the similar look, washed out colors, and maybe the bottom frame. You've seen this in Star Wars, and maybe it's a kind of invasion scene that the armies, which is easy to make thanks to CGI now, and maybe that's why directors always choose to make this kind of grand-looking scenes because it's now easy because of the technology. Next one, please. Some interiors, they have this kind of too digital. Maybe the one at the bottom also. It looks like an Xiaomi, whatever. It is some sort of a home assistant or whatever. The look is modern, digital. It lacks the depth and variety of others. Next one, please. So these are some fast forwards. So as you see, they use CGI to create this grand emptiness and all the great detail. Next one. And I'm sure you're familiar with these kind of scenes from other films. All this grandness, emptiness, and washed out look, and plain colors, especially those in the Dune. So, okay, next one. This is not any different from, in my opinion, if you ask me, this is not an original look. This is very much like Star Wars or Alien, Prometheus. If you're familiar with these films, they all are made in almost the same decade, and they share similar visual qualities, which actually makes one ask whether this is originality, because it's very easy to make a Colosseum and fill it with millions of people or aliens, whatever. So these interiors and exteriors that Villeneuve decides to use has taken a lot from the film. New generation liked it, but okay, these are all completely digital, not a kind of blending of both worlds. Next one, please. I think this was the end. Okay. When I watched it, when I came to this point, I realized that actually what Villeneuve did was actually, okay, in Blade Runner, he was overwhelmed. He couldn't be original. He repeated the original look with little originality, which resulted in his version being more like a remake than a sequel. Here we see the other end. This time, he's making a film, if you ask him, an adaptation, but at the same time, he's ignoring David Lynch's. This is a very interesting idea, and I came up with this concept myself. I mean, I'm not saying I'm very original with it. Quite probably somebody else has a better way of saying this, but that's my way of putting it. I think here we have a concept of negative referentiality. It's the same thing as, imagine that you're in a big classroom, and suddenly somebody enters this classroom, your ex-girlfriend or boyfriend or husband, and you should not see this person. That is, you must totally ignore this person. That is, and you have to understand that this is very difficult. Ignoring a reality, trying not to see something or somebody takes a lot of effort, because you must be constantly watching that person, where he or she is, where he's moving, you have to take measures. So ignoring something takes a lot of effort. So I think in this regard, intellectually, if there is a work exists, somebody has already made Dune, you watched it, and everybody knows that film. Okay, it's bad, if you like, but you're making another film, so you have to intentionally make your version totally different from it. So in his trial to make Dune, a kind of original work, I think Villeneuve is putting extra effort and extra energy to give the message that I'm not looking at Lynch's version. This has nothing to do with Lynch's version. This is not Lynch's version. So by moving around Lynch's version, he's creating some concept, in my opinion, kind of negative referentiality. In the first one, in Blade Runner, we can talk about the positive referentiality, obvious, giving direct or easily identifiable references to another work without calling it sequel, prequel, remake. And negative referentiality is conscious or unconscious avoidance of any direct, obvious, or easily identifiable references to other primary works in order to create a distance between the two works. So this brings, here I conclude, so this is what I reach. These two films, these two series, these two attempts of making films have shown me that actually Blade Runner 2049 technically a sequel, but practically more a remake. Whereas Dunes are technically remakes, but because Villeneuve does everything to make his version unrelated to Lynch's, Villeneuve is trying to make an adaptation, but it is actually making a in negative referentiality remake of David Lynch's version. So this, I know this may sound kind of paradoxical, but in his attempt at making an original film, he's intentionally trying to put a distance between himself and Lynch's work. I can talk about this for hours, but let me suffice at this moment say that Lynch's version, while it may look kind of primitive or simple or cartoonish, actually is closer to the activity of reading. So Lynch took Herbert's work, while turning it into a visual form, knew that he was making a film for a readership, for a reading audience. They know the novel. He was accompanying it, referencing it, leaving certain kind of things to the audience because knowing that they are familiar with the book. But probably Villeneuve, living in an age where people just don't watch, or they just watch even TikTok, 14-second long videos or short things, he was somehow providing them a work grandesque, maybe grandiose, with all the grandiosity, but at the same time, not any different from any other work made in this period. So everybody congratulated him. Yes, he was successful because he made a beautiful film for his age. But at the same time, while trying to avoid Lynch, he somehow, I can also compare the exposition, the expository scenes. Lynch uses internal monologue, which some people hate, but these internal monologues actually gave the film the quality of reading. So the audience is actually listening to, and it's kind of closer to reading, whereas Villeneuve did not use these kind of things. So he only chooses visuals. So because he makes the film in a kind of more visual age. Thank you. Next one, please. I think we're finished here. Yes. So this is my brief adventure. Maybe we can stop sharing the screen yet. Thank you. Let me just conclude. I don't need the slides now. So, okay, instead of presenting your full paper, I just wanted to summarize my, my problematic while trying to understand this, how adaptation works, what's a sequel. And I realized that these kind of diagrams, the diagram I presented at the very beginning, they are technically not sufficient. These concepts are very problematic. They have different qualities while making, another thing, maybe you're familiar with Psycho, which is made again, which the director actually decided to make almost frame by frame exact copy of Hitchcock's. Maybe he said this film could not be made in a different way. So making a remake is sometimes really overwhelming, as Villeneuve's case has shown, and in which case a remake is not a remake. It's a kind of replica. Whereas in the second version, Villeneuve sees himself probably better than David Lynch, which is a kind of interesting figure. And he actually goes and makes, in my opinion, bland, technically good, but actually at the same time bland version of Dune. Yes, this is where I stop. Thank you for listening to me. I wanted to have your opinions, not only limited to these works. You can just present your opinions, but also maybe if you agree with this, I want to keep this a kind of discussion. This is a discussion group. If maybe you could just give some other examples, other adaptations, other sequels, in which these concepts are problematic or function perfectly. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Cem Hocam.
Yeah.
You have given a lot to think about, actually, remakes and adaptations, sequels, etc. There are a lot of course, examples of that. But maybe someone else has a question or any comments.
Okay, if there's anybody who has watched these Dunes, but not David Lynch's version, maybe they can come up, and there's nothing wrong with watching only those versions because that's acceptable. Very few people actually got interested and go back and watch David Lynch's unless they are Dune fans, or which I'm not. Dune has other issues for me, which I'm not. I don't know whether I should talk about. When I read it as a high school student, I think I somehow disliked it. It sounded very, very colonial, very, very as if I'm watching the adventures, I'm reading the adventures of Lawrence of Arabia. I understand if you're an English person, so or from the rest of the world, you may like it, but if you're Turkish or growing up, that's some Western coming and destroying your part of the world, using religion against these people, sounds kind of too colonial, and I didn't understand why other people like that. So I shouldn't be. The whole thing is very colonial, imperialistic, but technically it's a good book. But on our side, I don't know whether we should like it at all. If you ignore this part, that's okay. Maybe disagree.
So maybe I can say something about that. I actually like the book because, as we might all agree, it's about the realities of our world. It exists, right? We have colonialism, we have religion as the stick, perhaps, or the carrot and the stick, etc. So I like the world building of the book and how actually the author uses the idea of fascism, for example, the one leader that commands and knows all, and he really creates this appearance or development of this leader very beautifully. I like that how he builds up Paul and how he becomes everything and knows everything and sees everything. I like that world building, and
world building is very good. But the detail in if you're watching, you're reading the novel, and hey, he used Islam. That's pretty good. Everybody is referring to Jesus's and Christianity. Somebody is actually using Islam, but the way he depicted a white person coming and becoming a messiah, obviously in kind of place of Arabia, using their religion, and they are represented as irrational people, Barbados believers following some sort of mystical, irrational thing, whereas the Messiah is a smart guy using this for their own good and channeling them against some sort of fascist leader. Okay, it's not an allegory totally, but if you see the Islamic references and okay, so you may agree that the people who are living in our part of the world are irrational. I also agree with that. But somehow I found it kind of a bit disturbing to show. Whoever reads this novel puts himself into a kind of a Westerner coming to Middle East, helping those people who are silly believers in a kind of antique or ancient, irrational belief system. But at the same time, he also changes. He comes close to them. He becomes their messiah and just leads them somehow. The colonial aspect, the message. I'm not sure. I may be wrong, but the technicality, world building, and inclusion of these kind of mysterious elements, mysticism, they're very beautiful. I mean, it's rich. That's why maybe it's not filmable in this regard. It's just that somehow, as a young and more idealistic person, high school years when you're almost a socialist, revolutionary, and at the time I was someone maybe disliked it, but technically it's a very, very beautiful work.
I definitely agree. He uses that Orientalist, aspect
Orientalist.
to attract the Western audiences, the exotic East, and what comes with it.
Should I be happy a Westerner used some elements, Ottoman, Turkish thing in his work? Sometimes when we see in a film, you see Istanbul or reference to Ankara or Turkish character, we feel proud. No, whether we should just look at whether film is okay or not. I mean, or how it is depicted. So in this regard, using Oriental elements is good, but I don't know, as I said, maybe as a young person, I was more idealistic, and I did not like the way it is incorporated into a Western work, where I am on the side of the irrational Middle Easterners who, oh, Messiah will come, you don't understand us, kind of a thing. So I may be wrong, I accept that, but technically Dune is a beautiful work. But and maybe in the follow-ups, there is a whole follow-up works and films. It's, even Children of Dune series. I haven't read them. Some say better things about it. Maybe I should just make peace with Dune and go back and just read the whole thing again and watch everything. Maybe maybe these people also are very good at sometimes repenting, just like Tolkien. I'm not sure whether there's room to explore. If there is anybody who is familiar with this, please let me know.
Can definitely read it again and read the sequels. I haven't read the whole thing. It's still on they're still on my shelf, all the 6 books. But I started reading Children of Dune, the second book, and I am personally more interested in the post-human world of the novel. I just skip the Orientalist part and see how he also builds up that post-human. The worms, the unification, the symbiotic life forms, that geology. Is also very rich about those aspects too. And in the second book, the power also transcends to both, children and grandchildren, etc. So there's another whole world in it. But I will definitely read it and check out the monsters. I'm always thinking of the monsters of Dune because there are a lot of great creatures in there.
So the Hudud, or what? I forgot the name.
Which one?
They have Arabic names, kind of.
They call him Mahdi, Wissam Al-Gaib.
Yes,
these are all
something Hudud, whatever.
Shai Hulud. Yes, the name of the worm.
Worm, yeah.
The large worm in the novel.
Yeah, and also the planet Spice. I think this is 60s. This was written in the 60s, and then a lot of psychedelic substance.
Yeah, that's definitely
reference. Substance will set your mind free is a kind of it may be a wrong message nowadays, but maybe Solaris, Tarkovsky and Stanislav Lem, the planet having a consciousness. It's not quite like it. Here it looks like some sort of extractivism. You go to a planet, you look at the resources, you have the right to extract them because you're going to put them to good use. I think the spice thing is also the whole thing. So these works, interestingly, Star Wars, Dune, also have an edge on the edge of mysticism. In Star Wars, you have, the Force or midichlorians, a kind of tiny beings that shape us, give us life, and also create Jesus-like figures. And here you have substance and some mysticism. These are interesting. Actually, it's interesting in the sense that hardcore science fiction fans should have an explanation for this mysticism because they're not supposed to like it. Isn't science fiction some sort of thing that is replacing religion? But in all these, we see very significant religious elements. That's also interesting. I mean, religion has a very central figure, belief, Messiah figures, Savior. You can explain them both ways. You can explain them secularly, but at the same time, you can explain them for a metaphysical way. So that's why these science fiction works are actually criticized by leaving, opening room for religion or belief system. Not for me. Not for me. Yeah.
I was gonna say something like it. Hello, Mert Özgür is here, I guess. Hi. I was gonna say, just like Star Wars, Matrix also had some religious, tendencies in it. And when you look at it, like the whole history of science fiction, they are even more successful in creating a culture. For Star Wars, for example, I think it has the most prequels and sequels, and it's got children's books, novels that we don't even, we can't even count. There's a whole universe on Star Wars, and the same goes with Matrix a little bit, but I think it's more like people play games, the kind of games like not League of Legends, but it was the board games. I think it was more popular in there. But I think they are creating new myths for everybody, and it unites. like a bigger crowd
Mm-hmm.
of readers that, you know, fancy science fiction and fantasy. That's why they're more successful in creating a culture.
Yeah, but this is also okay. Is more hardcore scientific stance is that, you know, as if there's a linear world history, which moves from mythos to logos, and we're going to get rid of all these irrational beliefs, religions, or hurafe, and we're heading towards a pure, rational, secular future. It didn't work. It doesn't work. Okay, it doesn't work like that. That's why maybe some people still complain about certain kind of things. But even science fiction world itself has a lot of religious material, or as you said, mythologizing, myth making, which is maybe necessary. So actually, we're not heading towards a purely secular, rationalist future. Actually, the more we try to get rid of mythos, the more it finds ways to pop up in different ways. People, as if we have this inborn, even evolutionary, you know, innate method of myth making. We keep creating myths to make life more meaningful. I think human beings are more worried about meaninglessness and emptiness. They don't like secular, rational, purely reasonable worlds. That's why they prefer keeping or finding alternative meanings or new meaning creation mechanisms. As you said, mythos and mythology, I think will not never disappear, and people will. I've heard myself people directly and intentionally saying, "I'm not going to question my belief system because you're promising me emptiness." So
Yeah.
knowing that their belief system could be wrong, maybe wrong elements, they don't want to get out of that. So modern science fiction is very actually interesting in the sense that it may be giving us some sort of religious awesomeness, religious ecstasy, some ecstatic moments. And these works may be also fulfilling this kind of duty, providing us with some sort of wonder, awe, awesomeness, and we like them. That replaces religion, but still the awesomeness is there.
I think it's also related with power because these days we also realize, I realize that the world is governed by very religious people. Like in the United States, there's the fellowship of the family, like evangelics. Trump, you know, there was this prayer session.
Isn't it interesting that it works?
It
People
works. I thought I thought we were done with all that, but we were not, obviously. And like what we're hearing from the Israeli government people, they're actually claiming land because, you know, God promised that land to them, and they're just speaking out. And it's just that we're I think our like our country is the most secular one among them right now. So I think it's also very
compared to America, we are in history. In American Senate,
powerful. Yes. Mm-hmm.
in American Senate, there was a senator years ago standing up saying, actually, this country is less secular than Turkey. Despite Turkey is kind of more Muslim country, but government-wise, we couldn't do what Turkey has done to totally secularize the government because there are still references to, you know, some sort of deity, God-given right whatsoever. There is an innate, inborn religiosity, not religion. It doesn't say Jesus, but it says God. It's called civil religion, which has no connection with theocracy. But there is an innate, something that has penetrated every aspect of American life, as religiosity, I think, which in my dissertation I refer to as civil religion or public religion. That without talking about theology, without talking about proving things, you feel it, you live it. It's a part of civil life. I think science fiction work is also making use of that, knowing that people don't like maybe Sharia system, but they love religion, a kind of public civil religion shared by, you know, national values, etc.
So these remakes, I think they're adding to that culture. In Dune, for example, there's this, you know, Messiah. In Matrix, there's this Neo that, you know, he's the one. And then in Star Wars, we've got Darth Vader who's using the Force. They're all powerful figures, and people, I think, they are interested more and more in that kind of power.
Yes. And when we're talking about science fiction and teaching it, and we go back to the definitions that science fiction is a product of industrial revolution and ration. How about these works? They are very religious. Religion has a very, very central place in them, and they end up in giving religious messages. So you leave the whole. Yeah, that's interesting.
Even in in my not non-finished thesis in Neuromancer, the hardest science, let's say hardest science fiction that could ever be written, maybe it's Neuromancer and the Scroll trilogy. Even in that, the AI just compares itself to Moses. Would you rather have me speak to you as a flame?
Okay.
And that it plays godlike. It has godlike features, and then the whole series ends with a hint of singularity. I mean, the reader doesn't know what happens right after. It unites with the other AI and creates a
Vahdeti vücut.
Yes. So
cyberpunk is very religious.
Yes, it is very religious. So there's no escape, I guess.
Yeah. How about the others? Let's hear.
Can I add something at this point
sure.
before I go, Cem Hocam, while we were talking about why secularity doesn't work, and as Hocam said, it goes. For example,
respect.
In Dune, that's interesting because how that society and religion, they call it Orange Bible, Catholic Orange Bible, something. I don't remember. It was something like that. And it actually occurred after a huge war with AI and robots in Dune. They had this war with AI and robots very, very, 100 years ago. And after that, people focus on enhancing humanity by use of drugs. Very LSD 60s style. I agree to that. But and that part is interesting because they relied on technology too much. And even they have like 10 commandments in that Catholic Orange Bible. Those shall not make another existence or being that is similar to human brain. There's this one sentence like that. So that come back to religion is also another metaphor because
the way it is presented is religious.
Yes, because I think they see no other alternative. Because they have depended on religion too much and it failed them. It had reached, like in Neuromancer, a singularity, and it tried to destroy humanity. So it is more of a being religious in that sense might be a matter of life and death. Because when you do not have it, the other alternative tries to kill you in return. That's also another nice turn in the novel, I think.
Also, RUR, the Rossum's Universal Robots, the first play
ever
puppets where the term robot is used. It's also very similar to the issue that you're talking about. Humans have created robots, but then they became so lazy, but not only lazy physically, but also became mentally, because we no longer needed to think. And robots get smarter, and one day they look at us, say, "Why are we serving these stupid people?" And then, you actually give them some right. That is, they become more humanized because humans became stupefied. So that kind of, I think this in Matrix, that's in Dune, I think that also shows the main worry of 1960s people who have seen today AI. I mean, again, we're back to AI and how it stupefies people. It's interesting. Dune has that as well, as a kind of backstory. And how about others? Anybody who would like to add any other work? Any other similar title? Okay, before we conclude, let me say a couple of sentences about the way, because I'm also planning to make another study and speech about this. It's something about science fiction. I don't know whether there are any people who are interested in writing science fiction, but there is another aspect about science fiction literature about its use of exposition. Different from other mimetic works, I mean, traditional works, which don't make exposition very direct. Science fiction works seem to have, because you're creating a world, because of world building, you also have to inform the reader about what is what in this world. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately because this is one kind of an attack on science fiction literature, that science fiction literature is full of info dumps. An info dump is a segment which is directly explaining what's happening in that world. Just like humanity was fresh out of a war with robots, year 2001. So you're explaining the background of the story. You're setting the scene, and you're telling, this is a new device we invented. So you don't do this in mimetic literature, in normal realist literature, because you talk about Istanbul, everybody knows Istanbul, despite the fact that the Istanbul in that work is not real Istanbul in reality. But how exposition, sometimes people say that, hey, we are writing science fiction works should have expository sections that should explain that world to the reader, because it's different. What has happened, the background or the meaning behind the tool or function behind the tool, this makes it different. But I think people reading that, science fiction full of info dumps, telling me, it's very artificial. It's not literature at all. So another worry on my side about science fiction literature is that because people don't read science fiction because of info dumps, could there be science fiction? Could there be ways of narrating science fiction stories without info dumps? Or what could be the alternative ways of explaining to the reader the world that you have created and how it functions, who's who? How can you explain these creatures are different, when they came, what happened, instead of talking about them directly, instead of adding a segment, a prologue or epilogue, or talking. Okay, Firuze has to go because of iftar, and if you're fasting, just.
Hocam, I didn't want to interrupt you, but thank you for
it's okay.
everything.
Thank you very much.
I need to leave.
Best wishes.
See you later.
No, see you later. Best wishes. Okay, thank you very much. If you're fasting, you feel free to. I just heard ezan in Ankara, but other people are in Izmir. Well, I just didn't want to give you a wrong warning. Things.
There's still a minute for Izmir.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? We're okay. Back to
It
science.
is interesting.
No, we share the same reality, but at different time. From a religious point of view,
Because the world is round.
yeah, but but we're at the same reality. Time is the same here, but you're fasting at a different time frame.
Yeah, I think I'd like to say a few words about religion. I think, Cem, I don't know if you would agree with that. Religion works like an anchor that we hold on to when we need to deal with when we need to deal with the unknown. And in most science fiction movies, for example, what was the name of the movie? Message or something. The lady, the Message. Contact. Yeah. In the movie Contact, the lady was in a capsule and he traveled, and then she saw her father, and there was also the reference to God there.
Yeah.
And in, for example, Star Wars, we have the Jedi Order. It's like a religion, as far as I know, if I'm not mistaken. So in most of these science fiction movies, we have the religion element. And I think in a postmodern world where everything sort of becomes vague, religion acts as an anchor that people still hold on to.
I also follow religious discussions on YouTube. Sometimes people come and just talk about different religions and try to prove these are secular, even atheistic people or agnostic people, trying to convince a believer that what he's believing is wrong by showing examples from his holy book whatsoever. It was just last week, and in one of these things, one man, despite all the evidence put in front of him, irrefutable, he said, he eventually agreed that I'm not going to come your way. I'm happy, I believe. Okay, what you say, maybe I'm not looking that way because on your side, you're giving me emptiness. So I think many people somehow sensing that actually, as what you called as anchor, a kind of frame kind of a system of references, at least what is a man, what is a woman, what is our purpose, what should we do? At least it gives us a kind of thing. The other side only gives you question marks. It only refutes, it only disproves. And suddenly you feel in a kind of world which is cold, meaningless, harsh realities. We are not special. There are hormones, genes, and we're kind of robots. And this part at least gives me some sort of satisfaction. And I want to be drawn away by the feeling of ecstasy of being, created by a big power or being watched over. So sometimes people, I find it surprising that people sometimes accept this consciously, knowing that I consciously refuse to question, which is I need that. So it's a meaning creation mechanism. It's a anchor, because if you just take out the anchor, my frame of references, I'm lost. Okay, everything is meaningless. I'm just a pure drop in a huge ocean, which is not controlled by me. So I think, the deeper we go into religion, there's going to be more problem. But I found this kind of questioning and also science fiction films dealing with religion so directly and indirectly has shown me that there is no way you can talk about, this is another negative referentiality. Even when you're not talking about when you're talking about a future where there's no religion, you're talking about religion. Okay? You're creating a utopia in the future where there is no religion, no mosques, no churches, no institutional. It's there in a negative sense, in a form of absence. It is there because everything is still taking it referentially. It's a road that you're not going, and it's just like a hiding behind the wall, just hiding behind the tree. It may just pop up any moment, and I think it's ridiculous. It's just that maybe you can shape. Maybe the more modern attempt is creating or reinterpreting religion in a more modern sense. This has a lot of problems. Maybe science fictions are focusing on this basic aspect. What is a human? What is our purpose? But not booked. There are no references to theology. In my opinion, as a concluding sentence, science fiction films present us a civil or public religion, which has connections with traditional religions, but actually cannot be proven or disproven. It's a religion without theology, very clear connections. You can't disprove it. It's a sense of awesomeness, giving you the sense of specialty and some sort of being, not necessarily anthropomorphic, but it's there. Maybe the universe itself, not a kind of angry man, angry sultan of the skies, but a kind of protective creator, which is a good idea, beautiful. It makes you happy. You could be watched over. Otherwise, if an atheist doesn't give you anything.
Well, no, I don't agree with that. No.
An atheist with an atheist, a believer. I'm an atheist, but I'm fasting. Okay.
I will speak for myself. Okay, I think Carl Sagan changed all that because I think he made everybody see that we're on this blue dot, which is amazing. Like we are the result of a million-year-old evolution, and you're just here and you're breathing and you're here. It's amazing. So you should.
Which is religion.
Well, in some sense, or David Attenborough also, when he's out in nature and when he speaks about evolution, I think it's amazing to see all those creatures. But I will agree.
Yeah.
I will agree with the need for religion because the world is undeterministic and we don't know what's going to happen next. So if even an atheist has to believe that that day is going to be a fine day, or they're gonna get this job, or they will succeed in something. When you wake up in the morning, you go like, oh, this is going to be a beautiful day. So that's also a belief. So we have to somehow hold on to a thought to continue our lives to start with. So I understand the urge because the ground is so shaky. You have to hold on to something.
Yes, but I think we are speaking something different from religion is for weak people. Okay, because you can't cope with reality. Religion gives a sense of peace and or uncertainty. That's one pragmatic reason. But I think a bit of beyond that as well. I mean, even when if you just read Carl Sagan and other people who are presenting you the pure existence as something marvelous, they're still addressing to that concept in you, being enchanted by existence, being. That's why maybe science fiction works give us these kind of grand images, beautiful vistas, intergalactic adventures. They are not any different from religious or adventurous narratives that take place in history. So they still satisfy our hunger for awesomeness, a wish to be, feeling in a little mysterious sense of curiosity. We find a different world, different conditions. I think we don't know what the different worlds will be like, but we read science fiction, it may be satisfying our sense or thirst for awesomeness. Tennessee
About
Williams.
info dumps, by the way, you said something about info dumps. Can I add to that?
Yes.
I think many science fiction writers have actually found ways to go around that.
Yeah.
And they have done this through writing creative dialogues or creating characters and context without explaining anything to the reader, expecting the reader to figure out the world that they're presenting. Gibson is a very good writer, I think, in that, because people found it really hard to understand Neuromancer in the first place because he didn't explain anything.
Okay,
So,
I have found 25 different methods of exposition that could be used in science fiction. So instead of talking to directly, one is dialogue, putting into dialogue, the other one. So there are very different examples. So science fiction authors are looking for ways, but unfortunately, a significant part of especially Turkish science fiction is still very infodump-esque, that they talk to you directly, explain things directly, which kill. It's actually like not a story, but a draft of a story. That because they tell you the template or the plot without taking you to that world, explaining you directly. So that kills a bit of joy. But I have found, I have a list, I don't know where I should find that, because I'm going to give a speech and a kind of workshop about science fiction to the Turkish audience. Hey, you're writing junk. You should be beyond that. This is how you should, what you should avoid. And I have 20 something different methods of, informing the reader without talking about it directly. And this is very beautiful. This makes your even readership very, high quality. Because once you see that info dumps, you can't unsee them. You don't like them. If somebody shows the info dumps, then you don't like that kind of science fiction, or you desire higher quality. Thank you. Yes, sometimes we lose our track because these are interesting subjects that are bothering us. And I talk too much, I know. But let me hear the others. Those people would like to say, comment.
I have a question.
To whom?
In general, like there's this conference tomorrow at TED University.
Yes.
Is anybody going there, or have you registered if you're going there? Because I think there's no registration. I couldn't find it anywhere.
You're talking about the conference with the subject?
Human and Machines.
Human and Machines, yeah.
TED University. I think it's also Ankara University. But I think it's in TED University. I'm not sure. I emailed them, but they didn't respond. So I'm asking.
That's strange. I don't know. Was this a kind of student conference?
It was a student conference.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
I see. Yeah, Men and Machines. So I remember the call for papers. I think some students have already. I've been I was shown a program of this, if I'm not wrong.
Yes, 2 or 3.
Good. Was it you? You sent it?
Yes.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, I think Gamze, Sam, And
We have three students. We have three
yes,
students from our
three students.
department presenting there.
And I don't think we need to register to go. We can
Okay.
just go and join.
Okay, thank you.
There's going to be one in about AI and cultural production in Ege University, Ege Cultural Studies Symposium, which I was at I'm an organizing committee member. I edited some. I also have an abstract, but I don't think I will be able to go. I'm too much, under strain nowadays. I forgot what I gave as an abstract, and they accepted it. And I went back and read it. How am I going to do that?
Oh, shoot.
It's a big project, actually. It's using AI, create historical images, and checking their bias. I did a bit of thing about it, and I'm going to complete it. I don't think that I will be able to finish it unless some miraculous thing happens. But these are very interesting conferences. In early April, I am supposed to be in Izmir, but I'm not sure whether I will be able to. Yes? Anybody else?
Hocam, I'm going back to your presentation.
Yes.
You talked about Blade Runner and the following one. I forgot the date in it. But I was thinking about the ending, because in the first original Blade Runner, so as the audience, we are in between. We can't understand whether the main character is human or not.
Yeah.
But in the second movie, it's we learn, we understand earlier that he's not human, right?
Yes.
And so I don't know if this is a question or comment, but can we think about it in a way that the director made it more conservative in that? Because you're relieved as the audience to learn that he's not human. Okay, now it solves all the problems. So how do you read the ending there?
Yeah, the original one's more open-ended, open for interpretation. Actually, there are two endings in Blade Runner. In the theatrical release, the Harrison Ford and Rachel, they get on a car, fly into the distance. Beautiful ending. So happy ending. They just like, this is a cowboy film. You ride towards Mexico. And they used unused footage from Shining to make that thing. So that is when Harrison Ford with Rachel in his side, flying among the clouds. This is the first time you see open skies in Blade Runner, and he has a very. They give him a monologue, Harrison Ford. This is going to be a happy ending. You have to read this. Harrison Ford disliked it so much that he read it in such a brooding voice, so brooding that, hoping that they would never use it, and they used it. So he says, "Okay, we're going to and whatever. Rachel, she's going to die, but who lives forever?" Kind of stupid ending. But Ridley Scott, in his director's cut, removed that ending and left it when they left it at the moment when they get out of their flat. You don't know what's happening, and he finds a kind of origami unicorn.
Yes.
It's a kind of hint that, hey, Harrison, we're Descartes, we're watching your dreams. We know your dreams. So, audience finishing the film at there reaches the conclusion that this open ending. Hey, Descartes is also a tool. He's also an android or replicant, whatever. He's artificial. And Scott wanted to keep it that way, open-ended, because the theatrical release is a stupid happy ending. When we come to 2049, Dino did not have that depth. He started, everything is fake. This is just like post-cyberpunk. You're making peace with the fakeness. Hey, I'm a robot. So what? Everybody is a robot. DJ is a robot. Duygu is a different kind of robot. It's a kind of, it has been normalized, and he is just moving around in this kind of sense of emptiness. But he's a robot with sexual drive who has hired another robot to satisfy his sexual drive. And he peacefully or meaninglessly gives his last breath on the snowy steppes in the middle of nowhere. There is no open-ended, interpretation.
And this gives me the feeling that the director just wanted to satisfy the fans of Blade Runner, right? With beautiful visuals and to give them this feeling back. But I think there was something missing here.
I think he didn't have the skill.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't know. He didn't have the story. They didn't know, and instead they killed the man. So it's kind of very depressive. It's very depressive. That is, and robots. In original Blade Runner, the what was I forgot the name. Roy Batty, the last surviving replicant. When it is dying, it becomes a human by accepting death, because they wanted to be human. And one of the interesting qualities about humans is that we know we're going to die. So in his last moments, when he accepts, when he says, time to die, it's just like we human beings die. And he becomes a human. Otherwise, if he becomes immortal, we're not immortal. He's not a human being. So there's a kind of philosophical depth there, some sort of acceptance, some philosophy about death. In this one, he is alone. In 2049, he's alone, meaningless. His girlfriend is everybody's girlfriend. He discovers that your woman is actually everybody's woman, nothing special to you. He's just a kind of tool assigned to find other people, make life more meaningless. It's a very nihilistic ending. It's just, he reaches a kind of we don't know whether he reaches anything, but he simply dies cold, meaningless on some stairs, half wounded, and he doesn't have a kind of some sort of satisfaction or curiosity, not a kind of open-ended closure. A robot dies without any awakening. He doesn't say anything, not accompanied by anything, no insight, no outside, nothing whatsoever. Okay, so they just end him there. We are all robots. If they did this willingly, they're very pessimistic about human condition.
But it doesn't make you question what it means to be human.
No question. No. I mean, if it says being a human is meaningless, if it says anything else, okay, very, very nihilistic, very, very, how should I say, it's just like, hey, you're not giving me. Blade Runner could be interpreted in a religious way, okay, original. The second one, just like the subject we talked about, there is not the awesomeness or any hope of. Anyway, nobody liked it either. Nobody liked it because it does not satisfy in any way.
Yeah,
it
was just nice to go back to that,
set. Yeah. You can only live. There is no purpose in living. So that's what it says.
Yeah. Thank you, John.
You're welcome. Okay. Yes, this time I think we're reaching 1.5 hour limit. So if you have no questions, maybe we can stop at this point and then meet next time. I don't know when the next time will be. There is going to be Cenk Tan giving a speech about, we'll just keep you posted. But if there is anybody among you, those who have not had a chance to talk about, I actually try to give this one as informal as possible. Show some pictures, not read the paper, because I've already done this twice. So just open a floor for discussion. Maybe, why don't everybody pick one title of their choice, come here and talk about it. Show some skins, 10 minutes, and open the floor for discussion. This is, we are very open to such informal proposals as well. So don't feel under the pressure of making something very serious. Talk about something. If you're volunteering, if you feel like just doing something like that, Denizcan, would you be interested in making a presentation, brief one, or inviting people for discussion?
Hocam, I'm currently reading a sci-fi book, and I'm nearly half of the way through the book, and I'm going to plan when I end the book. I'm going to present the book itself in maybe 1 month.
Okay, 1 month later, can we have you talking about this book, informing us about what it is, what are the subjects of this may?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, we found the victim. Okay, we found the next volunteer. Okay, thank you. So let's talk about it. After Cenk'tan, maybe we'll have a round with you.
Which book are you reading?
The Martian Chronicles by Red Bradbury.
Oh, the classic one. Okay.
Classic.
Yeah,
Very good.
good. Okay, so I think it's time to say goodbye. This is going to be, I think there's going to be a long break and then Bayram in between. So I hope you'll have a nice holiday in between. Enjoy your stay with your friends and family. We're going to meet sometime after the Bayram. We'll keep you posted about the details. And thank you very much for coming and hope to see you again. Bye-bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.